Good evening, everyone. Please. Okay. Introduction of members. I'll ask each of you to introduce yourself, starting with Arvin.
Arvind Shah.
Jake Lake.
Bob Potter.
George Willing.
Tom Zebeck.
I'm Dennis Kohler.
Phil Goldsmith.
Jody Rector.
Thank you. Thank you. Jody, would you want to call the roll, please?
Mr. Shaw.
Yeah.
Mr. Lake.
Here.
Mr. Potter.
Here.
Mr. Welling.
Here.
Mr. Zebeck.
Here.
Okay, next item on the business is approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion to approve, please, in a second?
So moved on the agenda?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved. Hopefully, everybody's had a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting, April 10th. I'd like a motion to approve that in a second.
I move we accept the regular meeting minutes of April 10th, 2018.
I'll support.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, new business. I'd like a, let's see, do we
Open the public.
open the public hearing first, or do you read the?
Open the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Like to hear a motion to open the public hearing regarding the appeal of Michael Thorne.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Jody, would you read the write-up for the introductory?
Yes. The applicant is Michael Thorne, 8467 Crab Road, Temperance, Michigan. The variance location is 8467 Crab Road. Michael has authorized Jennifer L. Brown to speak on his behalf. Property number 5802023156600, 6.06 acres. Current zoning is agricultural. His variance request is a plus or minus 43-foot front yard setback. Again, the applicant is seeking a 43 front yard setback variance to construct a 429 square foot addition on the north side of the existing home. The subject property is 6.06 acres with 200 feet of frontage on Crab Road and approximately 1,319 feet in depth. The applicant has indicated in the submitted letter he recently purchased the home in October of 2017 and intended on constructing 2 additional bedrooms for their 4 children. However, when submitting for a building permit, it was discovered the existing home is set back 24 feet from the road right-of-way, where 67 feet is required. Per Section 400.1800 Schedule of Regulation, a front yard setback in an agricultural zoning district requires 67 feet from the road right-of-way, 33 feet from the center of the road, for a total of 100 feet. While the entire existing home is a prior legal nonconforming structure and encroaches 43 feet within the front yard setback, per Section 400.1902(4)A nonconforming structures, no structure may be enlarged or altered in a way which increases its nonconformity, thus requiring the front yard setback variance for the proposed addition. Please note, per the submitted letter, the applicant has stated the existing driveway on the north side of the home will be relocated, and at this time, we had received no calls or letters of objection.
Thank you, Jody. Well, would Mr. Thorne or his representative like to approach the podium and give any additional information?
Hello.
Please give your name and address.
Jennifer Brown, 8467 Crab Road, Temperance.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't really have a whole lot of other information to give unless you have questions.
Okay.
It's pretty straightforward. It's going to be an addition for 2 bedrooms. The driveway will be relocated on the other side of the house. There might have been a driveway there at some point already, so we're just going to, revamp that, I guess. So I don't really have any.
Okay. Any board members have questions? Okay.
Jody said it was a prior non-conforming. So do you know what year the house was built?
Oh, I don't.
57?
I want to say, I think like 1954.
Okay.
I thought 57, but I didn't want to misspeak,
Okay.
so.
I believe I looked at it on the assessing department.
Okay.
In the 50s at least.
In the ordinance, Jody, when did the ordinance on the setbacks for agricultural zoning go into effect?
77.
1977.
1977.
Okay.
Okay.
The use is not non-conforming, the structure is not non-conforming, and the non-conformity is the setback, and the non-conformity is not being increased in terms of the setback. It's on. Get closer.
Yes.
All right.
Talk to the stick.
Okay. Anybody else?
No questions?
And as I understand it, the entire house is within the setback, but it was that way.
Move.
So right now, it's on the north side of the house, so it'll move to the south side.
From what I gather from the overhead, the aerial photo, it looks like your home isn't any closer to the road than the homes on either side.
No, not. There might be a few feet, maybe, but they're pretty close.
Okay. Anybody else?
I make a motion that we close the public hearing?
Should we ask
Yes.
Oh, okay.
if there's anybody else in the audience that has a comment to make about this particular request? No? Okay.
None.
So now you can,
My motion is that we close the public hearing.
okay.
I'll support it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So now, do we have any questions or comments for ourselves? Yes.
I cannot see a problem with allowing this variance simply because, well, one, it's set back from the home attic now, the new addition, and we're talking about 18 by 23, which is not a very large amount of floor space added to it, or added to the home. That's it.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that, if the home was built in the 50s and the ordinance didn't go in effect until 1977, there was no way for that to be known at the time the house was built and what the setback was, because it didn't exist.
I didn't think to ask when you were up here, but it seems like, I mean, we have to look at a practical difficulty, and it seems like the practical difficulty would be if the ordinance had to be abided by, then the addition would have to be separate from the home. I mean,
Well,
is that,
it couldn't be separate from the home, because then you'd have two residential dwelling units on one parcel. The other remedy would be to destroy the existing home and move everything back so that you would comply with the setback. And so that, to me, would be the practical difficulty in terms of the dimensional variance being requested here.
that's practical difficulty is one of the things we need to have to consider a variance request. So the practical difficulty would be that the addition is impossible.
It's impossible
Without moving the entire house.
You'd have to either tear it down, or you'd have to move it, or you would have to just leave it there and not increase its size, which under these circumstances would be unreasonable.
Okay, thank you. As far as the board members, any other comments or questions or a motion?
I can make a motion.
Certainly.
I make a motion to approve the variance on the property 5802-023-15600 for the following practical difficulty. The entire area, as shown on the aerial, every house is non-compliance. The house on the north side has less frontage than this house. And if we enforce the law by the book, they have to destroy the home and move all the way back, which is very hard for the owner to comply. And this does not increase, or this does not reduce the frontage what they have before.
I'll support.
Okay.
Jody, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Zebek?
Aye.
Mr. Lake?
Yes.
Mr. Welling?
Aye.
Mr. Potter?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Motion carried.
Excuse me.
Thank you. All right. The next item on our schedule is the appeal of Christopher and Vanessa Onik. Is that right? Thank you. Minks Road on a setback, front yard setbacks variance. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Chris, is it? Would you like, oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Jody, you need to, or would you, read the review of the variance request?
Oh, no.
Thank you. You're supposed to help me out.
Yes, again, the applicant is Christopher J. Onek at 9791 Meeks Road, parcel number 5802013000653, 1.436 acres, R3 zone, single-family residential. Variance request is a 6-foot front yard setback and to allow an accessory building to be constructed in the front yard. This is a corner lot, so it's actually the side yard. The applicant is seeking a variance to construct a 30 by 50 pole barn with an additional 8-foot pavilion to be located within the front yard on a corner lot. The property consists of 1.436 acres, having 233.11 feet frontage on Minks Road and 268.50 of frontage on Erie Road. The applicant has indicated in the submitted letter the property has a natural grade which drops 8 feet from the front of the property to the back, making it impossible to build in the rear yard due to the slope. Per section 400.1903, accessory buildings shall not be erected in any minimum side yard nor in any front yard pursuant to the schedule of regulations of the Bedford Township zoning ordinance. The applicant noted, due to the topography of the property, drainage naturally flows to the rear of the property, making the proposed location the best option to utilize the level ground area and maximize the use of the main driveway access to the proposed pole barn. Per section 400.1800, Schedule of Regulation, a front yard setback in a single-family residential district requires 52 feet from the road right-of-way, 33 feet from the center of the road for a total of 85 feet, thus requiring the 7-foot front yard setback due to a corner lot and having 2 front yards. A variance is also required to allow an accessory building to be located in the front of the dwelling. At this time, no letters or calls of objection have been received.
Thank you, Jody. Mr. Onek, would you, if you have any other, would you please approach the podium and state your name and address and,
Chris Onek, 9791 Minks Road, Temperance.
okay, thank you.
I don't have anything to add, but I can answer any questions to the best of my abilities.
Okay, super, thank you. Yes, Arvin.
You said you have a 8 feet of drop from the front of the house to the back of the property.
Correct.
If you move this 7 feet towards back, how much of the property is going down? I went there today, I could not really differentiate the level.
I mean, it'll probably be about a 6-inch drop. We are going to have to do some prep. We are putting the barn to bring that level up to get rid of the slope where we want to put it, but this will be the easiest place and the less amount of work required to
Yeah,
bring the
because
yard.
I didn't see any real slope. If you move 7 feet, I think you should be okay. And only thing you need a variance is allowing your barn to put in front of your house. Is that right, Dennis?
I think the 7 feet actually is to let them put it in the front of the house. See the line right there, the red line on the drawing? The 7 feet would be where the blue actually encroaches in front of the house. So if you actually look at his sketch, he's trying to get a driveway to work around. to get into the barn from the side. So he's trying to use the same driveway for access to the barn as well as his house.
No, I didn't
So-
get it. From the road,
See, the 85 feet is to the
yeah,
edge of
that's
the
a
house
red
now.
line. And of course,
So-
this is out of scale.
Correct.
So if you move 7 feet further down,
He
you
just
will
can't
meet
use his
both the requirement.
He just couldn't, correct. He would meet both requirements, but he just
Yeah.
couldn't do his driveway
Yeah,
properly.
and the great difference is not even very little. I went there to visit the site, and I didn't see any real slope. The slope goes down beyond. Now, in the house side, they have a walkout basement. So I think there is a deep little cubbyhole type thing. Is that right? Did I go to the right place?
I mean, yeah, you were at my house, but I mean, there is a slope from the front corner to the back. It
Yeah,
doesn't-
but you're right. No, from front of the property to the back of the property. It may be 8 foot. I can see that. But by moving the barn 7 foot, you do not have 8 foot problem. You may have a couple of inches problem at the most.
I mean, I can't argue the point with you.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't out there to shoot grades. It's just that.
No,
know
I
where
know,
his-
of course, I just
I know
looked
where,
at it.
I know where his property is and I know what he has in his backyard. And I understand why he was suggesting moving it forward.
Yeah.
Just from being there on the house build.
Yeah.
But again, I think he's trying to maximize his driveway. But I guess if you went to an end load garage door, then you could move it back. But then the barn's also gonna be behind his house, but whatever.
And then I'd
I
have to
mean,
put another drive access in.
Yeah, another driveway access.
Because I didn't see a big practical difficulty.
Is there any water well or septic tank issue?
The the well system is in the back corner by where the barn will end. I don't know if moving it back would play any issue with it.
Your well has to be 3 feet from any structure.
Yes.
You have a well there. I didn't see it though.
This is not the scale.
Any other questions from the board? Tom?
I would like to ask Dennis Kohler a question.
Sure.
Dennis, I don't want to stir up a can of worms, but is it all right to build a 1,500 square foot pole building with the square footage of that house?
It goes by the acreage. So
Oh, it does?
our accessory buildings go by lot size.
I see.
So
Not
it does
by
not need.
percentage.
Correct.
Is that, that hasn't
It
come up
used
in
to be,
years. Yes,
it used to be by square footage of ground floor area of home. It is not anymore.
okay,
It goes by lot size.
okay.
Yep.
So then I'm legal.
He's okay.
No, I mean, for him, me
Yeah,
too.
for you. Lot size doesn't
Yep.
matter. Yep.
I got plenty of lot, not enough house.
7 feet,
Thank you.
this here is not 7 feet. It's just, I don't think it covers this, I think it just covers this. I'm just, it gives you false, like,
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about the driveway.
yeah, that's, oh, here it is, here, okay.
Anybody, Tom, you okay now?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
Any other?
informational, that was it.
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine.
I had a question.
Yes, Jake?
How wet's it get in that backyard? I mean, if I'm looking at the pictures here, and I'm almost seeing some aquatic plants. It looks like phragmites in your backyard.
Yeah, right now I'm working on that. I got about 200 foot of drainage put in. But right now there is standing water in the back corner of the yard, yes.
does look like it drops, don't it?
Any other questions for the applicant? Is there anybody in the audience that closed the public hearing?
Go out to actually see the grade or whatnot, but just knowing my aquatic plants somewhat, I know that Phragmites grow. And the presence of those would suggest there's a lot of water back there.
Actually, this picture is quite dramatic as far as showing the drop-off. We didn't have an overhead. I like to see what the other people are doing.
Well, any other questions for?
Neighboring properties and how their layouts were.
No, I wanted to. I thought it would be an aerial.
No, I went by the aerials as well.
It's a corner lot, so
There's one.
you don't see other neighbors there.
There's this.
Jody, you indicated we had not received any comments from neighbors.
No, we have not received.
Okay. All right.
What's over here? What's to the south?
This all drains back here. You can see the guy's house is back here. There's no neighbor up there. He's the neighbor's
Well, I'm open
way off the road.
for a motion,
In his front yard.
if you folks see fit.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the 7-foot front yard setback to allow the accessory building to be constructed in the front yard on property number 5802-013-00653. Due to the difficulties of having a corner lot and also the slope and drainage in the backyard as being the difficulties.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a support, we have a motion and support. We've got the practical difficulty ironed out. Jody, would you take roll, please? Thank you.
Good luck with that drainage. Yeah.
Don't let those Phragmites come over on my place.
Yeah.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the appeal of the Lambertville Civic Club requesting a variance for a 3-day summer festival. I open for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Jody, would you like to read the introductory?
Again, the applicants are the Lambertville Civic Club, Monroe Road, Lambertville, Michigan, and the Bedford Township Park Commission, 8100 Jackman Road, Temperance, Michigan. The applicant is the SUMMERFEST 2018 committee. Representatives are Richard Kinney and Jerry Edmondson. The current zoning for the Civic Club is R3 and single-family residential and within the Lambertville Village Overlay District, and Promley Park R2B, also within the Lambertville Village Overlay District. Parcel numbers 5802-019-13800, 8.07 acres for the Lambertville Civic Club. Promley Park 5802. In accordance with Section 400.2204 of the Bedford Township zoning ordinance, it is stated the Board of Zoning Appeals shall seek the review and recommendation of the Planning Commission prior to taking any action. On April 25th, 2018, this request was before the Planning Commission, where a recommendation was made to approve the use, providing a certificate of insurance that includes the Park Board and Bedford Township as additional insured, have the proper permit for the sale of liquor on site, provide experienced security, report on Sheriff Department for security, provide a detailed plot plan of the site along with the narrative, provide traffic flow detail, including ingress, egress, and interior traffic pattern and control. And from the Ordinance Enforcement Department, obtain fire department approval, and helicopter rides are not permitted as included in the Planning Commission minutes of April 25th, 2018. As indicated in the submitted letter from the SUMMERFEST committee, which is the letter that was submitted to the Planning Commission for consideration and has not been amended to reflect the August 10th through the 12th event dates and the elimination of the helicopter ride event. The event will be free to the community to attend with food, beverages, and various activities for purchase. While parking is identified on the Civic Club property, off-site parking will also be available with bus service to the venue. The Planning Commission has requested more detailed information regarding the parking and traffic flow. It has been identified how the profit with the event will be distributed and/or retained for future year startup cost. The applicant has stated the Bedford Veterans Center will have a booth to sell water to benefit local veterans. Food will be available for purchase from local food vendors that will include local restaurants from the community and surrounding communities. And all alcohol will be available for purchase in a beer tent located inside the fenced-in football field, which must be consumed within the fenced area. The applicant has identified the hours of operation as Friday 5 p.m. to midnight, Saturday 10 a.m. to midnight, and Sunday 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. with activities that include bounce houses, performances from local groups, bands, dunk tanks, kid activities, etc. The submitted plot plan identifies the area designated for activity with the beer tent, food vendor, seating, music stage, and kid area being located within the fenced football field. The restroom facility is located to the east, outside the fenced football field, and parking is located to the south of the football field with ingress from Monroe Road. Parking exit will be through Palmerly Park onto Dorr Street to Summerfield Road. As previously stated, it is also indicated in the applicant's letter that off-site parking will be available with bus shuttle service to and from the festival. While the Park Board Chair, Jerry Goodrich, signed the application letter, a letter was submitted by Mr. Goodrich to the Planning Commission for consideration stating further action regarding liability is being discussed with the Township Attorney at this time. The Planning Commission eliminated the helicopter rides. However, park property will still be utilized for traffic flow, and the Planning Commission stated the Park Board and Bedford Township must be named as additional insured. The Bedford Township Fire Department conducted a review of the preliminary plan submitted and has stated an operational permit is required per the International Fire Code of 2015. Therefore, once a more detailed plan is submitted, the fire department will review the plan in a more detailed in compliance. At this time, the applicant has not provided additional information from what was presented to the Planning Commission. Although not formally requested, it has been indicated that the applicant wishes to postpone action on this request to the June meeting in order to obtain the required information documents listed in the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval. The public hearing will be held at this meeting, and if so requested by the applicant at the meeting, the action can be tabled to a later date determined.
Thank you, Jody. Is there a representative of the applicant here that can approach the bench?
Hello, Rich Kenny, 7824 Jackman Road.
Jerry Edmondson, 8715 Secor Road.
Tim Fitzgerald, 9195 Lewis Avenue.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any information for us in addition to what Jody reviewed?
Yes, we have quite a bit actually.
This is, we have a more of a detailed site plan for you. We're still formulating that out. Really wanted to try to get a final approval before we went through a lot of the legwork here to do this. We did also inquire on the insurance, and I'm going to provide a copy of proposed insurance that we would cover for your review as well. We had the application for the music permit, just haven't filed it yet. It's completed. The liquor license is completed, it's not filed yet. A lot of these things have fees associated with it. Before we get this approved, we want to have that approved before we send all these applications off with additional fees to the township or to the state. We have met with the police department in regards to security. I had some preliminary meetings there, preliminary meetings with the fire inspector as well, already just starting those discussions. But really, until we get a final approval, we really wanted to hold off on some of that detail to make sure we have approval to move forward before that effort goes into a lot of the documentation. We'll open up to any questions from the board.
Any of the board members have any questions? Yeah, I can look at it. Sure. Might take us a minute to look through.
We also did file for the organization paperwork as well, have that completed as well. So we do have the tax ID number for the organization as well.
Okay, thank you.
So we're still waiting for you to get the information for some of these requirements that the planning commission brought up?
We were hoping to have conditional approval based on us completing those actions for both the planning and zoning. And once we had conditional approval, we would go back and complete all those activities to really map out the 10 things on the list that, besides the helicopter rides. A lot of those are just applications that can be submitted to ordinance. It's just a matter of each one of those has a fee associated with it. To get a liquor license, those all have fees and processes associated with it. We have the paperwork ready to go. We just want to have the approval before we start those processes and hopefully have that conditional upon us turning those 10 things over in a very short time frame. Once we know we can move forward with the project.
I think if we had a conditional, you know, if we meet all the requirements by the June 10th meeting, we'd have everything set in stone for you. You know, we've talked to ordinance and, you know, the fire department. Everybody's very willing to help and, you know, help us along our way, because this is our first year, so we're willing to take, you know, everybody's suggestions on make sure it's done right the first year. Making sure that this is not turning ever into one of those panty parties over there. That is not what this is about. This is about a community thing, bringing it together. If anybody knows what we do over at the Vet Center, it's near and dear to our heart to bring the community together and do something special for it, and it will never turn into that panty party.
Well, I think everybody is excited about the SUMMERFEST coming. I would ask other members on our board, do we have any other conditions or questions rather than on top of the ones that were brought up by the planning committee? And I want to thank the planning committee for helping organize the questions and the requirements. I was quite tickled with that. But is there any other thoughts that we should be considering?
I have a question for Rich.
Yes, Tom.
So I'm guessing your plan is if you can put more of this together this evening, you'll have what you're missing for that end of the month in May planning meeting, correct?
Yeah, if you had additional conditions you want us to work on, or if these were acceptable, we would come back and document, you know, we have the insurance policy ready to sign. It's a matter of knowing that we're going to go forward before we spend $1,800 on an insurance policy. I can't provide you a final policy until I know what your requirements are. If I sign one and you tell me you got to change the whole thing over, it costs more money, so I don't want to go through that. The application for liquor license, all it is submitting the application. Am I concerned about getting a liquor license? No, I already have one. So I don't think me being on this board is going to have a hard time getting a liquor license for an event for this venue. Security report, we already worked with the sheriff's department to get some discussions going. We're ready to finalize some of those plans and work the more detailed plan out. I don't want to waste their time or our time if this ain't going to go forward. The detailed map of the site, we have a little more detail to map. Once we know we can do this, we're going to start going out and asking vendors if they're interested, get those locked in. That'll build out the final site plan when we have the activities and vendors selected. Flow pattern, we know we can park at Monroe Road Elementary. We have busing secured. We're going to document out that once we get the rest of the transportation busing planned with flaggers for people coming in and out of the park area and the Civic Center. The hours of operation, it's really, we have the hours of the event. We can modify hours if you prefer, deem fit for what time music has to stop, things of that nature. We're open to those feedback and suggestions of what your guidance would be. Park board approval, we're on their agenda to meet with them this month. The music permit, we have the application in hand, just got to turn it in. There's a $25, I think, a fee to go with that. We already have that ready to go. We met with the fire inspector, and he is on board with walking the site, doing the measurements. Again, don't want to waste his time if this isn't approved. And then the helicopter, we already agreed not to do that, to make life easier for everyone, including legal and the park and all that fun stuff. So we're ready to go forward with all these things. Again, a lot of it's pushing the button now or waiting till we know we have approval before we push the button is really the concern.
I have a question for Jody. You had a real sour look on your face, headed in my direction. Did I misspeak something?
No, I was just looking at Phil because this will not go back to the planning commission.
Oh, I saw that in here, that's.
No,
that's where I
it was
got that.
it's a recommendation from the planning commission. The site plan and the layout would be what the planning commission would recommend on safety of traffic flow. And that's why those comments were part of their approval for the board, because they couldn't make a determination with the information that was provided at that time. So those were included in the motion for you to get the answers to before moving forward on a determination.
Okay. All right,
I was just making sure that I was correct with that with Phil.
and I'm not on the hot seat.
No.
So, Jody
This,
and-
this board will make the ultimate decision. It's kind of reverse of many other things where you may conditionally approve, or you may approve a variance subject to planning approval in certain circumstances. But in this case, per the ordinance, per the zoning ordinance, the planning commission actually reviews it and makes recommendations to this board, who either approves or doesn't approve the request. So, let me suggest this. You can have some dialogue amongst yourself, ask questions of the applicants tonight, and get a feel for what you're likely to do. My sense is that if the applicant is able to deliver everything that the Planning Commission has requested, and that the liability questions are answered, which I think they in large part have, because they've decided not to move forward with the helicopter rides, which is the biggest thing that caused me concern from a liability standpoint, for obvious reasons. As long as a liquor license, temporary permit is, or a permit is issued by the Liquor Control Commission for this event, which I'm sure it will be, then if all of those, Planning Commission, and any further requirements that this board may feel would be appropriate for this type of activity, then you'll be in a position next meeting to approve it. So, I don't think it will, and I guess you should state so tonight if you think it would, but I don't think it will be a waste of time for the applicant to go through all of the steps that have been outlined by the Planning Commission, fulfill all of those requirements, have that information presented for this board to review at the next meeting, and what you can do is vote to table the decision tonight after inviting anyone else from the audience who may wish to speak on this issue, either for or against or otherwise, and then provide your decision at next June's meeting. And you can, although it's not binding, you can give the applicants some sense tonight as to whether or not this board would be inclined to approve this if all of those conditions were met. It's sort of like a conditional approval without obligating yourself, but, I think the Planning Commission has given a pretty good roadmap here for the board to follow in terms of taking action on this. So it's up to you, but that's just a suggestion.
Question.
Yes.
But today, can we approve it with all these conditions documented by Planning Commission? I think only thing we need to look at is the parking ingress and egress. Okay, but if they submit that with a condition that we need to approve everything, so this guy can proceed with their processes and get all the permit and get the site developed with parking, ingress, egress, all that stuff.
Well,
And submit next board meeting for
as long
final
as it
approval.
comes, as long as it comes back to this board, because this board has you're the final arbiter,
right,
you're the
right.
final authority. And so something has to be set in place so that someone, this board, looks at it to see that, in fact, they have done everything that the Planning Commission has recommended. So you could do it that way, but I would like them to come back to
Yeah,
you
yeah,
next
I
month and
understand
say,
that.
here it is.
Okay.
Here, item A through Z, that the planning commission and anything else that you've requested
Yeah, is
has
done.
been addressed and has been taken care of, and you can see it. Here's where the parking will be, here's where ingress and egress will be, a more formalized site plan, perhaps. Here's our application that's pending with liquor control, or here's our approval from liquor control. Here's our insurance policy for this event, which names the park commission and the township as additional insured for whatever limit of liability this board requires of them. You can do it that way if you choose, but what I don't want to have happen, because sometimes things just get lost because people are busy. And we approve it conditionally, and then it's not reviewed by anybody else. So I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Okay? Because there's the potential for liability here, but if it's addressed properly, that minimizes that risk, and we ensure to oversee the operations of all the parks in our community, and they're a partner in this to the extent that, and I use that term loosely, but part of their property is being used, so they need to know what it is and approve it, and give their approval, and be certain that they're insured against liability. So if you do it in that manner, that's fine.
Now, in the planning commission, Tom, did they specify the policy limit expectation?
As far as insurance limits? You know, I don't remember.
Because
Rich.
it's not documented anywhere.
No, I don't know.
Yeah,
if we
what is the limit we are
established
expecting to
a
do?
dollar figure.
I think the only comment was from the park board in the minutes. I don't believe it was specified.
Actually, in the notes that Rich just handed out to us, he's got host liability coverage. I don't know if that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, but that was what planning commission asked, or this is
We worked with
what
a
they are
local-
proposing?
Sorry, we worked with a local insurance agent here to work with an event insurance provider, underwriter, that underwrites events like this around the country. So this is pretty standard. I got a 18-page policy I'd be happy to share with you to look at.
Yeah.
That's more of the
I
detail.
believe it was discussed.
What are the limits of liability?
There's a more formal document.
All right.
$1 million per occurrence, $2 million aggregate coverage, includes liquor liability coverage for the liquor policy. But this is a standard policy for most events like this around the country.
And I think I'm reading this right, the vendors are gonna have to have their own
Yes.
insurance also.
Yeah,
and
vendors
that's
have their
what
own
I really
insurance as well
like,
on top
too.
of it.
So,
And
that's-
there'll be protection for the township, for the park
Right.
board, for the civic
Right.
center, for, the school system where the people are parking at, the bus system, for the bus companies. They'll be also written on the policy as well to protect them from any liability.
Another question is, there's been a lot of events that have been done there, and I've experienced them, and the traffic and the parking, especially with the busing, I think will work just fine. The only thing I would like to know that you have people there directing traffic.
Yeah, we'll have flaggers and stuff there, and,
That's the only, because it always worked before that, so why not this time?
yeah, the only thing we're asking for is if we can get hopefully some conditional approval. If we come back to the next meeting and present everything to you, we'll love that. That way we know that we're putting this money forward, and we know there's a likely possibility that we'll also do our thing, that this will be approved after the conditional approval today. That allows us to go back, spend the money for the insurance policy, get that written, get the liquor license application submitted, knowing that we have that conditional approval, as long as we come back to this board and show you everything that we committed to doing with the more detailed police partnership and the fire department to make sure we do the things they ask us to do. That's all we're hopefully asking for.
What I would like to make sure I understand, Phil, is that if the board wishes, we could approve the variance request tonight, but somehow make it contingent upon completion of all these requirements by either completion or substantial completion by our next board meeting. Is that what you were saying before, or
Well, if you do it that
that way it would give them?
If you do it that way, it would have to be conditional approval. that conditional approval could be revoked if all of the conditions that have been identified by the Planning Commission are not met, including any additional ones that this board might impose, so it could be revoked. So final approval wouldn't be given until the applicant comes back at a later board meeting, hopefully in June, which hopefully will give them sufficient time to get everything together. The insurance, given the fact that the helicopter rides are no longer in the picture, the 1 million per occurrence, 2 million aggregate that's a good insurance policy for this type of event. Everybody needs to understand that that conditional approval could be revoked if the conditions aren't satisfied. Okay, fair enough? That's just fair for everybody.
something like-
Have the opportunity to look at it, see it, which you don't have yet tonight, and that's understandable, because they were just in front of the Planning Commission, and so they didn't have enough time to do what they need to do. And the event is now slated to be held in August, so that should be a workable timeframe.
Okay. Yes, Tom?
I'm not sure, but I think maybe Jerry wanted to say something. Jerry Edmondson.
Okay. All right.
Jerry, did you want to say something? You look like you were answering.
No, I just wanted to emphasize the insurance. I know Mr. Goldsmith was concerned about that, is each vendor will, before they get into our event, it's $176 for them to get on that rider.
I see.
So each vendor will have an insurance policy.
So each vendor will be named under this policy, will have coverage under this policy?
Yes, sir. And meeting with the agent, we emphasize it's $176. And at our meeting, we emphasize that that person will have to pay to get on the rider for that policy.
Okay. So the initial, the premium I see is $1,800 if you go forward with this. And then there's an additional cost for each additional insured in terms of the vendor?
With vendors.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Well done.
I have a question. Go ahead, Jake.
I just, looking at some of the notes here that was provided by Mr. Kinney here. Approximate visitors, 10,000, is that a capacity or is that an estimation?
That was just from the insurance company, that's what they put at the minimum at, just for, it's the same cost, you know, they set the minimum for events no matter what you do. I don't expect 10,000 visitors.
No.
We had, 500 to maybe 1,000 last year, the event that happened in the summer here. I don't expect anything close to that. I think it's gonna be, in that 500,000 over 3 days.
I have a question.
Yes, Tom?
You know, you guys had talked about, and when I was at the planning meeting with you, security. I don't know if it's an assumption or we need to just ask, will there be medical there also besides security? In other words, Monroe County Ambulance or one of the township's life squads?
Yeah, the fire department will be there, they'll be set up, and the sheriff's department will be there. And then we'll have veteran volunteers in the military, so there as well.
And
Most of our volunteers are all going to be veterans.
And I can confirm that Chief Massengill did express interest in having a booth set up and had spoken with Mr. Kinney regarding that.
Okay. You know, it was just an assumption. Fire never was discussed other than an inspection. Security was with the sheriff's department or whoever was selected. And I just thought, if we're trying to cover all the bases, it's worth the question.
What I would suggest is that the applicant notify Monroe Community Ambulance of this event, the three-day event, the expected number of, or estimated number of people who might attend, the fact that you will have a beer tent there, or that the Civic Club will, so that they're aware of it, and they can have a unit that might be available. And they do backup with other units throughout the county. That way, they'll know, and they'll be aware of it, and they can stage it more appropriately if needed.
And that's a great point. It is, and that's why we're here, to all talk about what's best for the township and how to approach it all. So that's great, and we'll do it.
Okay. So, as far as a conditional, should the board decide to do this, to grant you a conditional approval, does that give you what you're looking for tonight to move on with the,
Yes, it does.
okay, if we decide to do that, okay. Any other comments from the board to the applicant? Yeah, well, all righty. Then I'd like to open up to the audience. Anybody from the audience? Yes? You have a concern? If you would, please approach the podium and state your name and address, please.
My name's Harry Dazowski. I live on 8334 Summerfield Road. All this discussion, I can see none of you live in the immediate neighborhood of Parmley Park because you have no consideration for this to go on until 2 o'clock in the morning. They have speakers that are taller than I am where the bass will vibrate the windows on your neighborhood, on your windows all around the neighborhood. They blasted the neighborhood the loud noise from the bands into the late hours of the night and early hours of the morning, thus ignoring the township noise ordinance that we have. It hasn't been enforced by the township. It just goes on. If you work and live in that neighborhood and you have to go to work on a Saturday or Sunday and this music goes on, and then you have the roaring of the traffic and the drinking drivers leaving and throwing trash out as they leave these parties that late at night or early in the morning, you would not have this party in your backyard. However, I believe if you're going to pass this ordinance, like I said, I'm sure it's going to go through. You don't have any consideration for neighbors, but you have other facilities in the area like Perrysburg, Toledo, Tecumseh, Blissfield, even Detroit. They turn their music off by 10 o'clock at night. They have respect for the neighbors. Even Detroit has respect for the Canadians across the river. You go down there and their music stops at 10 o'clock at night, not midnight or the wee hours of the morning. So if you do pass this variance, let's have some consideration for the neighbors. Let's shut this music off at least 10 o'clock at night. It was going till midnight, and that keeps edging further. It goes on, they don't turn. This ordinance that we have here in the township about noise, how do you get this enforced? Like I said, we know we're going to have the park. You have no consideration for the neighbors. I know it's going to pass, but at least do some consideration. Let's be a little civic-minded, and let's stop this music from rattling the windows of the house till late at night and early in the morning. That's all I ask for. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you.
To me, there's no further consideration. We have no problem turning it off at 10 o'clock. It's, I respect that. We have no problems at all.
Good.
I want to emphasize it's a family-friendly. It's not the stuff that they had last year.
That's right.
I respect the neighbors, and the music will be shut off at 10 o'clock.
And we will go clean the neighborhood up. If there are idiots throwing trash out there, we will walk through and we will pick everything up and make this a pleasant event for everybody. You have my word. I'll do it myself.
Appreciate that 10 o'clock. Me and the rest of the neighbors down there, like I said, we complained about it, but to no avail.
Well, it'll be off.
And if you do live in the neighborhood, nowadays with that bass, when they turn it up, that's all you hear is the bass and the windows.
I don't think any of us want to hear that.
I-
Well,
Vote for
we'll be
that.
happy to turn it off, and I'll personally go around and make sure all that garbage is picked up.
Thank you.
Just make that a condition of any approval, if it's approved. The noise ordinance is midnight, and I had already suggested 10 PM. But it was brought to my attention, well, the ordinance is midnight, but I appreciate the neighbor's statement, and I also appreciate the applicant's commitment to turn it off at 10 PM, and this board has the authority to attach any reasonable conditions, so 10 PM it is.
I have a question for Dennis.
Yes.
This noise ordinance, I don't remember anymore, but do they have a dB level criteria to measure it?
Yeah, they do have a dB level.
Yeah, and don't start that. No one knows how to operate them.
It's a simple machine, $50 machine you
Yeah,
can buy.
but it just,
Radio Shack.
it's, I think that issue is taken care of if they have amplified music there at this SUMMERFEST, if it's a band or otherwise, they will turn it off at 10 p.m. And I think that's reasonable, and I think it's reasonable to ask, and it's reasonable to agree, and they've done that. So
Yeah,
that-
and the enforcement officer only works up to 5, and nobody comes in the evening when somebody complains. Is that
Don't
true?
they work multiple shifts now?
Well, our sheriffs, there will be security there. Make it clearly known that there is to be no amplified music or noise after 10 p.m.
Okay.
That's right.
Well, we'll take care of that. For this event, we'll take care of that. Generally speaking, you're right. Generally speaking, it's our ordinance enforcement department, but we'll take care of that for this event.
I'll personally be looking at the watch.
Right, I'll unplug it.
Okay. Anybody else?
And honestly, I don't think anybody really wants that music so loud that people are shouting over each other.
Pardon me?
anyways. I don't know what the other events were doing, but we.
There's necessary.
Well, yes, and we'll also notify any sheriff's deputies that are assigned to this task that as part of the approval permit process, the music is to be turned off at 10 p.m. So they'll assist us in that regard. And I also believe that our ordinance department will have an ordinance officer assigned over this weekend to be there in the evening hours.
Good enough.
So we can also make a requirement that on the township as well as the applicant? Meaning, we could put something in here saying that the township ordinance officer has to be on duty, or?
I don't think you can go so far as that. You can make a suggestion that scheduling be set so that an ordinance enforcement officer be made available. You can make a suggestion to that. I don't think, this board doesn't have the authority to direct personnel schedules, but you do have from our supervisor or from the ordinance enforcement department.
Okay, good.
Someone suggested that the sheriff could, well, would not normally act as a ordinance enforcer, could somehow be made to do that or suggested to do that during this?
We can't make a law enforcement officer do anything. That's within their discretion. What we can do is state that as the approval for this event requires all amplified music, anything, to be turned off at 10 p.m. If you see that it is not, then you very firmly tell whoever is creating that ruckus to turn it off. And that we'll give them the names of the organizers, and if there's, if there is any resistance to that, I think they'll take care of it. I hope they'll take care of it.
I'm very close with all of them.
Yeah, okay.
I want to emphasize that our committee will be there 24/7. We will be there. We're not going to leave at 5 o'clock and not come back. We will be there, and I'm going to exaggerate, and we will unplug it at 10 o'clock if that's what needs to be. We will be on ground.
Yes, Jake.
He'll be here with me.
Comments. I think we have some others. that-
Do we have any other public comment? Yes. Thank you. I didn't.
My name's Michael Leonard. I live at 6669 Brent Ridge Lane, Lambertville. I am a member of the Civic Club. I am the treasurer of the Civic Club. And sitting here in the audience, hearing the Civic Club's name being dragged through the mud is a little disappointing to me. To my knowledge, every time we've had anybody at our property for an event, they've withheld every ordinance that they've had to withhold too, including last year when the ordinance department came out to the property within the time frame that their permit said they could be having their music. Well, the ordinance department has been there every year, so we're always good-minded citizens of the property.
All right, he needs to direct his comments to the chair.
I'm not disputing anything from what everybody else said. I'm just saying that the Civic Club as a whole does not have loudspeakers on our property. We do not blare music at any point in any time. We basically there to operate as a civic organization. We support a youth football organization on our property. Those events are held during the day, on the weekends only, and at a few hours in the evening, and we're done by 8 o'clock. We do not have loudspeakers on our property. We maintain that park better than anybody has ever done it in the past 20 years. I personally know that because I'm the one busting my butt doing it. Okay? I cut the grass, I cut down the weeds, I cut back the tree line. I've been doing it. I know what's on that property very well. When they approached us asking if they could use our property for this event, we thought it was a great idea. Obviously, they have to do what they need to do. They're renting the property basically from us. So everything about this event does not affect the Civic Club. It's their organization doing the event, not the Civic Club. Just like everybody else that does an event on our property. It's not the Civic Club, it is whoever is renting the property doing the event. They're the ones that have to come and appeal to you to get the permission to do it, not us. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Crystal clear. We understand that.
Good, then I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience, please? Are you okay? Okay, thanks. Yes. Would you come up?
You have to come to the.
Oh, come up to the podium,
because,
sir.
come on up. The question was by the
Come on,
gentleman,
the
why is the variance being requested? It's really not a variance, it's under our ordinance for a temporary gathering, but why is it the Civic Club? Simply because the Civic Club owns the property. That's the only reason. The variance itself is being asked for by these three gentlemen that appeared at the podium. They are organizing the event. They're going to lease the land from the Civic Club or some sort of an agreement between them and the Civic Club for the use of the Civic Club's land. But because it's on the Civic Club property, that's why they've been identified in this
What is the
proceeding.
group then that is leasing this property then? Who are they?
I don't know what.
Township, SUMMERFEST.
All right.
We're a nonprofit.
It's not in any way associated with the township, okay? It is a separate nonprofit group that is sponsoring this. They will enter into an agreement with the Civic Club, and then they'll obtain the insurance, as they have identified for us earlier, and present proof of all
Well,
those
then
things.
that's where it's confused. I thought the Civic Club was the one sponsoring this.
No,
All right.
they are not.
All right, thank you.
So the main reason that we created this is obviously to bring the community together and have a great event. But secondary is the majority of this money is going to charity. We're not keeping it for ourselves. Each year, we'll pick a new charity to put almost nearly 75% of the funds that we raise from it to help charities. This isn't, we're not profiting off this as individuals. Yeah, locally. Local charities. We're keeping it, from Bedford by Bedford, so it's gonna be really nice.
Yes, Phil?
Do you gentlemen, do you have your organizational paperwork for your nonprofit? Do you
Yes.
have that
Yes, we
already?
do. Yep.
So can we maybe the planning commission did that, but
If not, it's appropriate to close the public hearing. May I have a motion?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried.
Discussion.
Yes, let's have a discussion.
So here's, I agree with the planning commission did a nice job laying out some conditions. One of the things I think we need to be responsible to do with this group is to detail those out just a bit. I'll take one swag at it here, but number 5, traffic flow. To me, that's a safety concern, in my opinion. We've got a parking area lined out, but egress, ingress, where's the traffic going to flow? Where's it going to come from? Where's it going to go to? How are you going to keep it separated from the people? Those are plans I'd like to understand and see. I know there's also talks around flaggers, people being able to tell you where to go with your car, et cetera. Just want to see what that plan is. You know, something written out, maybe even pictures to identify. Pictures are always great, you don't have to read it. But something along those lines, just so we've got a better feel and know what we're approving, so we feel comfortable with the safety. Maybe we detail out each of these items in that way before we make an approval. We talk through some of these things and see if there's anything that we would need to add as a group, or we'd feel more comfortable with a conditional approval on.
Okay, that's well taken, thank you.
Yeah.
Arvin, you have a comment?
No,
No.
I'm ready to make a motion. If you so
Well,
allow me.
before we make a motion, are you suggesting that we go through and,
The traffic flow was my one. Ticket item, there's one signage, I don't even know what that means, signage. It just says signage.
okay,
Signage of what? I don't know. That's why I'm saying we might need to add a little meat to that. Some of the other things are pretty much self-explanatory. But between traffic flow and signage, I'd say those are the two things I was a little foggy on as far as what we want.
You know, I can't guarantee you this, but I think signage might have had in planning to do with directional traffic flow. That might not have been all of it, but that was a discussion that came up in planning also about the entrance and egress to have it all flow in one direction. You know, so no matter what happens, you have to go home out Monroe Road or whatever. And I think that signage, that's not the total sum and substance of what it is, but I think that was referring to your previous question about wanting to see traffic flow. I think that was going to be depicted
Okay.
between the flaggers and some signage. Probably in the entrance and the exit, it's the best place to start. You don't want them coming in the out.
So maybe 5 and 6 are actually one and the same.
Yes, very possibly.
So part of a traffic flow plan, including
It's a compliment.
signage. Okay.
I think that's what this board needs to see at the next meeting. I don't think the applicant's prepared to give that to you tonight, but point well taken. The signage and the ingress and egress should be detailed for you, saying, this is where vehicles go in, this is where they exit. It's being kept separate from pedestrian traffic for safety purposes, and also it's being done in such a fashion to minimize the impact on the neighbors.
Yep.
That's what you need to see, that's what they need to present to you. That's what I envision, and that's what I hope you will see at the next meeting before you give a final approval.
But also if there's buses, the buses would want to be separate from the cars pulling in and pulling out.
All
too.
all
I
of that
agree.
should be detailed, so perhaps there should be a separate entrance for buses if they're bringing folks from a different location where they can load and unload and do it in a safe manner. So hopefully, they'll be able to detail that out for you, but Mr. Lake's comments are very appropriate in that regard. And signage so people coming to the event know where they need to go to park and things of that nature. And again, you should place a premium on doing it in such a fashion to minimize any negative impact on neighbors.
might have been a more appropriate question during the public comment, but as far as access and egress from Parmalee Park, the only times I don't think I've ever been there during an event, but when I have, I've gone through the side streets off of Summerfield to get to it and leave. And that's just my traffic. I mean, it's just the vehicle that I'm in. It's not 100 others.
That's why it needs to be identified.
Is there other access and egress to the park and the?
No.
It's not for us to define.
No.
I think it's,
Well, they park here and then they come out.
I think let them.
Come in, they don't have the parking here, but there's access.
Okay, but
To the
I
Civic
see your
Club, yeah.
point. It'd be something that we'd require
And
acceptable pattern of
I would,
egress and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, just a more detailed plan, put some teeth behind what that flow looks like, how you're gonna keep pedestrians separated from traffic, what are you gonna do with the buses coming in, those types of things.
might be appropriate for the applicant to get together with Damon Cecil, our ordinance enforcement officer, and the officer in charge of the Bedford substation, Officer Mooney, I believe, to get their input as to how best to handle traffic flow in and out of the park and all those issues. If you do that, you'll probably be successful in convincing this board that that's a good plan.
Shall I go ahead now?
I think, yes.
Yeah, I make a motion on the application from Lambertville Civic Club regarding their SUMMERFEST, SUMMERFEST 2000 committee with the following conditions. Number
Arvin,
one,
can I stop you right there? What is the name of your nonprofit? So
Okay.
are you a 501c3 or just a not-for? Okay, and you've made your application to the state or to the IRS, and has it been conditionally approved or approved? Okay, so let's identify that entity as the applicant.
Bedford Township SUMMERFEST committee. No, SUMMERFEST. Okay. A 501c3 organization with the following condition. Number one, to comply with all the requirement delineated in a planning commission minutes of April 25, 2018, and submitting to this board detailed explanation with the proof evidence of compliance of each item. Specifically, a parking layout and traffic flow, pedestrian traffic safety, minimizing traffic impact on neighborhood, showing the bus traffic as well as loading and unloading of bus. The next item is to shut down the music by 10 p.m. and follow the noise level of Bedford Township ordinance. Suggest to request ordinance officer for enforcement as well as the security people for enforcing this time constraint. This organization should ensure to pick up the trash every day after the event is complete, so as to eliminate any nuisance for the neighbors. This organization will submit their organization document with a non-profit status to the board, and these requirements all should be completed by next board meeting of BCA. Failure to compliance of this contingency will require BCA board to revoke this approval.
Can I make one amendment?
Anything I missed?
Well, Mr. Lake may have something else there. for you.
Yes, one amendment, if you would, a plan with emergency responders.
Yeah, and have a coordination with emergency EMS system and the fire.
Covered it.
Okay, anybody else?
Anything I missed, Mr. Goldsmith?
I
I
have a
think you've
question.
captured it very well.
Does the word conditional need to be in that or not necessarily? Did he cover that at the end?
I think Mr. Shaw covered it, that this is conditional and that it will be revoked unless there's full compliance with the conditions
That's
that
right,
he
I
enunciated.
mentioned that.
I know he hit the revocation thing.
Okay.
Okay.
I
you.
second the motion and the amendment.
Yep.
Okay, I have another, well, a question, is that what you had indicated about music?
Yeah.
I like the verbiage that Phil suggested, or that Phil,
Any
about amplified music
sound,
or noise.
including but not limited to music,
Okay.
or
Okay.
what some might consider music and others might not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Jody, add that.
You're showing your age, Phil.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's good.
Good job, Arvid.
Is that, so we didn't change anything? That,
No.
Or did we, and you're okay with the,
Yeah, I'm okay with the changes, yes.
Okay.
okay. So we have a motion and second. Jody, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Welling?
Aye.
Mr. Zebek?
Aye.
Mr. Lake?
Yes.
Mr. Potter?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, motion's approved. Thank you, gentlemen.
And good luck at your event.
Yes, yes.
Good luck and have fun, too.
Yeah, we will be there. I will be.
The, yes, Jody?
Before they leave,
Before you leave, please?
our next meeting is June 4th. It's a Monday night, and any items you can get to us, we would need by Tuesday, May 29th.
Does
To
that,
have our packets prepared, okay?
does that give you the time